Good morning and welcome to the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Sunday, the 11th of November 2020, and I'm glad to have you aboard, whether you're coming to me from YouTube, from Rumble, or from the podcast. Thanks for showing up. I wanted to talk today about a subject that I've talked about in past, but I wanted to sort of talk about the practical application of that subject, and it is the idea of self-sacrifice in practice. Let me go ahead and just kind of dive right in. Sorry, I'm doing a little bit of camera adjustment here. Okay, so I wanted to talk about some of the things that I mean when I talk about self-sacrifice, and I want to show you that self-sacrifice, in some senses, people would look at and go, this is kind of harsh, and in other senses, they'd go, really, there isn't very much to this a lot of the time, and that's just the reality. So, not too many years ago, when I was married, I found that what I was expecting of other people was something that I wasn't willing to do myself. So, for example, music. I was I am a very strong Christian. At the time this all went down, I was quite strong as a Christian, and therefore about the only thing I would allow on my radio station is Christian music. Now, when I was in the car or wherever. So somebody at the time that I rode with regularly decided that they wanted to listen to secular music, and some of it, in fact, quite bad, in my opinion, secular music. It had glorified horrible themes and ideas, and it was just really bad for the person, and it was something that I didn't really want to allow into my life. But the problem is that I realized that I was being hypocritical by telling that person, you may not listen to what you want to listen to, but I get to listen to what I wanted to listen to. So I made a decision, and it was what I consider a self-sacrificial decision. And that decision was, I'm not going to listen to anything on the radio at all if it's going to make somebody else stumble or have problems. This I consider to be a basic tenet of Christianity, not doing things to make it so that your brother or sister stumbles, right? So I stopped listening to anything on the radio, even when I was in the car by myself, as a rule. Right. There were other things that got involved in that. I started to see that a lot of the Christian musicians weren't living lives consistent with their faith, and that bothered me as well. But the thing is, I came to the conclusion it made more sense to stop listening to music altogether than to make that a potential bone of contention. Now, the other person still chose to listen to what they chose to listen to, and I didn't make any noise about that or say anything about it. It grieved me greatly a lot at the time, but I chose to keep my mouth quiet with regard to that. And that kind of brings on a second thing. There are many times when I think things and I zip my lips. I'm quiet about the things that I think. And there are a couple of reasons for that, but they're pretty much all of them self-sacrificial in nature, right? The first is that I know myself to be somebody who will think things that are harsh, wrong, and bad, and that there are things that when I look back on what I thought, I go, that was really, really not something you should have ever thought. That was not a good thing, right? And the other is, quite frankly, to keep the peace by not talking about things that grieve you or whatever, that when you really think about them are you have no reason or right to expect other people to live or do as you want them to do. So, and I was going to say, one of the things about it is that I'm not necessarily talking about big things when I talk about self-sacrifice, right? So let me give you an example, or some examples, right? When I started to get to the point that I had basically no money in the bank account, I began to realize that I had to reduce certain things in my life, certain expenses in my life. So I used to like to get those coffees in a bottle, and probably at some point I may get back to doing that. I haven't really decided. But I decided, no, I have to stop that because I want to be able to afford things for, at that point it was me and my son. So for my son, and of course afford the basic things for me as well. And so also where he is prone to be very picky in what he eats, it means that there are certain times when he eats out, and at those times I typically have foregone doing so. Recently I actually went and ate out with him, or brought things home, because the COVID-19 thing made it so that we're not eating out in restaurants. We're getting things from restaurants and bringing them home for him. But I'll just tell you that I realized I had to make the sacrifice and stop eating out myself so that I could reduce the cost for that. And that also goes, by the way, for travel, something I hadn't noted in my little list of notes. But I decided that I would forego any travel that wasn't absolutely necessary on my part when we were financially in bad shape. And we're not in great shape now, but we're not in horrible shape either, right? That didn't mean much for me, because except for when he was in school, I didn't hardly go anywhere. And mostly when I did, it was places that were for him and so forth. But the point is, I have had the opportunity to go places when he was in school, and I forewent those opportunities because I wanted to ensure that we had gas and we had money as we needed it. I had one more, and that was that, well, a couple more. At various times, in order to make it so that people were able to do what they needed and wanted to do, actually I have a couple more. I have woken myself up at what many people would consider ungodly hours of the morning, and I use that expression advisedly. It's a bad expression, and I use it to show you just how serious it is for most people. So there was a period when I was waking up at 4 in the morning, and that was just how things were, getting to bed at 10 at night or whatever, waking up at 4 in the morning and going and doing various things that I wanted or needed to do. One of the things that I was doing was going to the gym. And so there's the waking up, and that's kind of a demarcation, but then there's the going to the gym thing. Well, I was informed that that was a problem because I was leaving the family alone at nighttime, and I stopped because I didn't want to put people in that shape. Now, here's the funny thing. Either way was a self-sacrifice. Why? Because on the one hand, what I was trying to do was keep myself in good shape because I knew as I got older there was a potential for health concerns. But I finally ended up just saying, no, I'm not going to do that. Another self-sacrificial thing is changes in attitude that I've made along the way. Where I've said, I'm not going to think or act like this because it's not correct. I wanted to make a few sort of points, and I sort of made one already, alluded to one already, and the idea is simply that it's not necessarily big things that are self-sacrificial, but they add up, right? They add up, and you notice them, I promise you. Over the course of time, and the more you do it, the more, if you're not really careful, that change in attitude thing, if you don't do it, you end up with a really bad attitude. So I try to have a really good attitude even in times when I know that I'm not being able to do a lot of the things that I want to do. I also wanted to say I'm not trying to blow my own horn here. I'm trying to do what's best for the people around me, and that's some of them family, some of them friends, some people that I work for, and so forth. And I'm not looking for sympathy either, right? In none of this am I looking for sympathy. I stayed in the military past when I wanted to be there because I felt like it was the right thing to do. I'm not looking for sympathy on that. I did what I felt like I needed to do. So remember, self-sacrificial things can be big or small. There can be a lot of them. There can be a little. But they're important things that you can do for other people to make it so that their lives are made better. And the hope is that you actually help to transform them by your actions. Now, that isn't always how that works out. As hard as I tried, that didn't work out with certain individuals that I tried to do it for. But that's just life. Okay, I am about done with my time, so I am going to go ahead and wind down here. I hope you have a great day. Today is Sunday, which many count the beginning of the week, myself included. I do that too. And I wanted to wish you a good week. I hope that your day is a good one, that your Sunday is a good one, that you, like I say, have a good week, and that it turns out to be a interesting and maybe even profitable time for you. And hopefully we will see you again tomorrow. That will be Monday, the 12th of November of 2020. I wanted to, hope to see you again tomorrow on the podcast, on YouTube or on Rumble, wherever you're joining me today. And hopefully we'll see you then. You have a wonderful day. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Sunday, the 11th of November, 2020. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for checking out this video. Remember that you can like it on YouTube and you can give it a rumble on Rumble if you want to do that. I have channels on both YouTube and Rumble. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels. You can subscribe to either one of those if you want to do so. Remember, if you subscribe on YouTube, you probably want to click the notification bell in order to be notified of new content. If you want to see more from me, you can check me out on my blog. That's blogs.kpschubert.com, blogs.kpschubert.com. You can also see my Facebook page. That is Kurt's Religion and Politics on Facebook. You can check out my Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com accounts. My handle on all three of those is at kpschubert. That's at kpschubert. You can check out my podcast. The podcast is at podcasts.kpschubert.com. That's podcast.kpschubert.com. And finally, you can check me out on Patreon. And if you want to support me, that's probably one of the better places that you can do that. I am Kurt's Religion and Politics there. Thanks again for checking out this video, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.